Salutations everybody, it is Matty here today, sitting down to talk about BioWare, where they've made an absolutely massive move involving Star Wars The Old Republic, and this game is shifting developers, which is a rare move indeed, but it's significant not only because of the game itself, and we're going to talk about its future later, but also BioWare, as I like to put it, renewing their vows to single-player video games, which they talk about in their blog post. And before I really go any further and get into the thick of things, when I was reading this blog post, I just had a sense of appreciation and admiration to the point where I had reached out to BioWare and said, y'all, I just love this transparency. I love this communication. Please continue to do this. As a fan of games, we don't get this enough, and I absolutely want to give kudos anytime I see it, which I know I sound like a broken record with BioWare, but they're doing the best I think I'm seeing across the industry. Just talking with their fans, here's what's happening, here's why it's happening, here's how it's happening, here's what we're doing, and so on and so forth. I just love what BioWare is doing. So a major tip of the cap to Gary McKay, the communications team, just what they're doing here, I think, is wonderful. And especially when the games start coming, right? When we finally get into the thick of Dragon Age Dreadwolf, I think a lot of people are going to really have an immense appreciation for this communication. So I hope other teams around the globe are watching what BioWare is doing here, because once they start to deliver, I have faith, right? Once they start to deliver, I think a lot of people are going to take note of that communication and how key it is to their success and the love they get from their fans. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, enough of me stroking their ego. Let's talk a bit about video games, shall we? We're going to get into Star Wars The Old Republic, Dragon Age Dreadwolf, and Mass Effect. If you're new here, you're into BioWare, any of those franchises I listed, you're in the right place. Consider subscribing. We talk about BioWare whenever we get the chance. So let's begin with how this story started to roll out. IGN had initially reported that Star Wars The Old Republic was going third party as BioWare would renew its focus on Mass Effect and Dragon Age. This was according to sources familiar with the matter, and then eventually it was confirmed by BioWare in what is now a blog post on their website. You'll see here on the tweet it says, almost 12 years after launch, BioWare is handing the development of Star Wars The Old Republic to Broadsword, who will continue to grow and evolve the game. So let's read from the top. Hello, it's been a while since I've checked in, and as you might have heard, there's a lot happening here at BioWare. Almost 12 years after launch, Star Wars The Old Republic remains a fantastic success, continuing to welcome new players to its vast galaxy and entertaining veteran players with its evolving content. It's the longest running live service Star Wars game ever, and we're enormously proud of the work the team has done in creating, expanding, and maintaining this incredible game. We're delighted to have grown such a dedicated and passionate community through all these years. The future of the game and the community continues to be very bright. I've been working closely with Keith Koenig, who leads Star Wars The Old Republic team, to give the game and the team the best opportunity to grow and evolve. And so, while EA will remain Star Wars The Old Republic's publisher, development of the game will move to our partner and friends at Broadsword, a boutique studio with expertise in managing online games. Both the Broadsword studio and the Star Wars The Old Republic team members will be joining forces and working tirelessly to support every player every day, ensuring that these worlds and these communities continue to thrive and grow. Their president and founder, Rob Denton, even had direct experience with Star Wars The Old Republic, having helped the team during the development and launch of the game during his time at EA. We'll get a little bit more into the future of Star Wars The Old Republic because Keith does share a message. But the thing I really like about this move is when I first saw this, I had, I think, a similar feeling to a lot of people. Oh boy, there it goes, off into the sunset. You look at other thriving MMOs, the first two that come to mind for me are probably Final Fantasy XIV as well as Elder Scrolls Online. Of course, there's classics like World of Warcraft, which continue to do extremely well. Star Wars The Old Republic is one of my personal favorite MMOs ever. Of course, the universe itself does a lot of the heavy lifting for me, but the gameplay I find enjoyable. The storytelling is great. I love that it's an MMO focused on telling great stories and putting choices in your hands. I just think it's a really fun time. But when I saw this and kind of the lack of big expansions coming to the game, I remember, I think it was last December, we got a big expansion, I put in quotes, for Star Wars The Old Republic, which ended up being not received the best by fans, which I found disappointing because they went back to Manan, man, which is my favorite Star Wars planet. So it was a bit of a gut punch, quite frankly. But when I first heard the news, I thought that would be it. To see that they're going to continue to support it and grow it, I'm keen to learn what that roadmap's going to look like. Again, we'll get into that because they do tease a little bit on what that will look like. But nonetheless, ladies and gentlemen, support and growth of the game will continue, which I wasn't expecting when I heard a development shift was happening. It sounded more like maintenance work. So we'll talk about that, but let's go into what's next for BioWare, because I think that's the main meat of the conversation that motivated me to have this video made here today. So what does this mean? Well, most importantly, it means that players will continue to enjoy Star Wars The Old Republic they know and love, and as Keith mentioned in a recent community post, all current plans are still in place. There are also exciting new features planned that the team is not quite ready to talk about yet, but suffice it to say that players can expect improvements and new content in the future. This is a company that will give Star Wars The Old Republic the room to grow and flourish with the continued commitment and full support of Lucasfilm Games and the continued partnership with EA. No big change comes without challenges. Among them is the fact that most of the current team will be invited to accompany the game on its move to Broadsword, though unfortunately not every role will make the move. This is the hardest part of the transition, and these decisions were not made lightly. We are, of course, doing everything we can to support the affected team members who have an opportunity to find new roles within EA. In addition, we're aware that the team members who are being asked to move to a new studio will also be adapting to change, and we will be working with Broadsword to make the transition as comfortable as possible. In the long run, though, we are confident this is the best decision for the game and its community. We at BioWare will miss being part of Star Wars The Old Republic story going forward, but we also know it will be in very good hands. This is a delicate way, I'd say, of mentioning there may be some layoffs here. There may be people who don't carry over to the next position, who don't want to pick up their whole lives from Austin and move somewhere else. I totally get that. We don't know the work from home offerings, the inner workings of that with Broadsword, but this is a delicate way of putting that all out there. Now, what's good is it seems like for the most part, a lot of the key members are going to be moving over there, but no doubt there are going to be support roles that kind of just drop off. And so best wishes to those who are affected by that, and that hopefully they land on their feet. But next, we get into BioWare itself with their single player focus, which I got to say, it was good to follow up some of that negative news with some great news here, I feel. As we look toward the future, BioWare is focused on being a leader in developing immersive, emotionally charged, single-player games, with teams primarily in Austin and Edmonton. This means a renewed focus on our two key franchises, Dragon Age and Mass Effect. For Dragon Age, we continue to build, polish, and tune an exceptional experience we know our fans will love. We can't wait to share more on this soon. For Mass Effect, we continue pre-production with a core team of veteran storytellers who are bringing the deep franchise history forward in a spectacular new way. I'm excited about the opportunities that lie ahead, and Keith wanted to share his thoughts of his own about the transition. Stay well, Gary McKay, General Manager of BioWare. We'll get to that message from Keith in a moment here. This is the main reason I wanted to make this video. I know that I'm kind of in this small pocket of people I feel in the YouTube space that does enjoy Star Wars The Old Republic. We've done renewed reviews for it. We did one in 2020, and then at the end of 2022, following the bigger expansion that came out for the game, just to talk about the quality of the product and where it lies and if you should pick it up. But when it comes to most of the BioWare content on here, we talk about Dragon Age, we talk about Mass Effect, and whatever's going on with those franchises. To me, this is a significant inadvertent update on those games. Yes, we know Dragon Age Dreadwolf has entered its alpha state. They're polishing, testing, and based off what we learned with EA's earnings reports that we talked about, I think about a month or two ago now, we know that probably Dragon Age Dreadwolf won't be landing until after April of next year. So it's still got a lot of time in the can, which isn't a bad thing when a game is in alpha and beta for a long while, because you get a lot of testing and refinement in, which is important for RPGs that require a ton of balance, not only narratively, but of course, gameplay-wise. Now, with all of that said, the reason I'm excited about this news is, and I'm not advocating for Star Wars The Old Republic to be this game that they just had to get rid of, but this frees them of their last lingering multiplayer component. Before all of this, we were hearing about Anthem 2.0, the pitch process, and how, unfortunately for that team, it got shut down. Fortunately for fans, I have to say. And now we had BioWare focusing its efforts on 3 games. We had Dragon Age Dreadwolf, the next Mass Effect in pre-production, and then of course we had Star Wars The Old Republic. shirking some of that responsibility and leading the development charge with another studio and kind of taking your hands off that project means that anyone BioWare hires, any work they do is being poured into primarily single player stuff. This is also great because EA, as a publisher, I have to say, has improved drastically. And I know that's very taboo to say, but look, I think they were the scapegoat at some bad management from BioWare when it came to stuff like Anthem, where they gave them up to 8 years. I mean, at a certain point, you can't point the finger fully at EA, even if they encouraged some of the transition. They still had time, I think, to figure things out based off the information we've gathered. But now we know Dragon Age Dreadwolf has been rebooted. We know it's been in development for a while. They're getting that time. And what this says to me is that EA is okay with BioWare being a primary single-player studio, and that is Gary McKay's vision for what BioWare will be, which is what it's always been. Unfortunately, we had to go through some bumps in the road. We had to get the multiplayer in Dragon Age Inquisition. Of course, we got a fantastic one in Mass Effect 3. We got things like Anthem, Mass Effect Andromeda. BioWare definitely lost their way, but it feels like through the communication team and Gary McKay's vision of the team and the projects that have been greenlit and the ones that they've sort of shirked the responsibilities of, this is BioWare's future. A single-player game development studio making AAA games for Dragon Age and Mass Effect, and that excites me. I feel like it strips a lot of question marks away about what these games will end up being beyond the reports. Saying here in this blog post, we're focused on single-player games, we're renewing that focus, is honestly something I think BioWare fans have been waiting to hear for a long while. You're just kind of, waiting for the hat to drop. And now it's finally here. This is the primary focus for them. And I am excited as someone who, my favorite developer really is BioWare. I mean, they're the reason I fell in love with games. I always think of the incredible streak from 2003 to like 2010 where you just had Mass Effect and Jade Empire and KOTOR and Dragon Age Origins, like just all in this insane stretch, right? And then the sequel to Mass Effect being fantastic. So to me, this feels like they've got in touch with their roots. They understand who they have to be to kind of be recognized in this industry, which I think is good. EA seems to be supporting that. They've removed some of what we'll call the added baggage, and now BioWare goes and has to execute. That's the last step here. They have to execute. And they're taking a lot of time, so fingers crossed they truly do. But now let's settle into the rest of the message on what's going on with the future of Star Wars The Old Republic. This comes from Keith Koenig, who is executive producer for that team. We're excited about the future of Star Wars The Old Republic, and once we get our feet firmly planted at Broadsword, we look forward to sharing plans for game direction and improvements. Until then, rest assured that all current plans are still in motion. As examples, we just delivered our largest story update in months, and a new story flashpoint with game update 7.3 Old Wounds, taking us back to the planet Voss, which we haven't played since the KOTET expansion back in 2016. We will also be rolling out game update 7.3.1, which will contain our next galactic season in the coming months. And stay tuned for details on game update 7.4, where players will see the story continue following the events of Old Wounds. And there's even more on the horizon. We will continue to publish communication on StarWarsTheOldRepublic.com and the Star Wars The Old Republic forums, as we always have, so you will be hearing from me again soon. No change is easy, but it certainly helps that we're all excited about the future of this very special game. We look forward to seeing that vision become reality alongside all our players and fans. May the Force be with you, Keith Koenig. So that's what's going on with SWTOR. Obviously, we are kind of left just going, all right, hopefully now they communicate their vision when the time comes. We don't know how long that settling down is, but again, a lot of people are picking up their lives, moving elsewhere for this game, which is crazy to think about too. Transitioning to a whole new studio is probably a scary thing too. Do you have that same security from EA and BioWare as you do at Broadsword? So we don't know that type of stuff. I'm sympathetic to that, but it seems like things are still in motion. Things are still moving here, which is great to see. And I think will be good for the future of SWTOR to have a team that's dedicating a lot of focus to that game rather than BioWare, where it's kind of split attention, where they needed to almost get rid of it because it would just thrive elsewhere, right? Like a great, like addition by subtraction. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, that's everything going on with BioWare in the world of Star Wars The Old Republic, as well as Mass Effect and Dragon Age, as they renew their focus on single-player games, and they are now officially only looking at single-player games. So with that, I'm looking forward to seeing your thoughts down below. What do you think about BioWare's commitment to single-player games, Dragon Age Dreadwolf, Mass Effect 5, if you will, as well as what's going on with Star Wars The Old Republic? I'm looking forward to seeing all of your thoughts, so please do fire away. And with that, take excellent care of yourselves, and I will see you in the next video. Be sure to follow me on Twitter, follow me on Instagram. Those links are down below. And a big thank you to all the patrons, all the members who continue to support the hell out of the content here. Stay sexy, stay active. I love you all. Peace.